I'm going to talk about the classroom today. This is something that has a real significant impact on children's learning and has evidence behind it as to what helps and what makes it more difficult. So we're going to have a think about paying attention and what helps support our attention. So paying attention is a critical first step for learning. If you think about a time where you struggled to focus on something, and think about what stopped you. Now imagine in that situation you're in a noisy, busy place with lots of things to look at as well. Do you think that would help you, or would that make it more difficult? So for most of us in that situation, it would make it more difficult for us. Our capacity to learn can be thought of as a jug. So imagine every input that comes into your brain as something going in the jug. So the feel of your clothes, that's an input in the jug. The noise of the projector, that goes in the jug. The sound of something scraping against a chair, that goes in the jug. Any kind of visual display in front of you, a poster on the periodic table, that goes in the jug. Now for most of us, we can gradually sift through the jug and our brain unconsciously decides whether we need to take action or not. So it takes things out of the jug and it goes, actually, we don't need to do anything here. For autistic children and young people, or for young people who have sensory difficulties, they don't have an easy time of filtering things out of the jug a lot of the time. So their jug might get really full and those things might stay in the jug all day. So rather than being able to empty the jug just gets fuller and fuller, and then it might overflow, which is sensory overload. So what we want to do is try and minimise the amount of items going in the jug. So we need to make sure that our environment is not adding extra things into the jug, or is adding as little as it needs to into the jug. So in terms of classrooms, we need to think about what we can remove, and let's take a look now at some photos and think about what this looks like in practice. So let's think about your home and your decor. So how we decorate our homes is hugely individual. And when we visit someone else's home, we might notice how their decor makes us feel, how it differs from ours, what the colour scheme is, or we might be quite oblivious, but we might just leave in a slightly different mood because it impacts us subconsciously. So here's a maximalist room. So maximalism has lots going on, filling space with colours and plants and textures and art. We'll all have our own thoughts as to whether this would be how we would like our lounge or not. And when we compare this to minimalism, this is stripping everything out other than the bare essentials. So it makes the space really easy to process. But again, we'll have our views as to whether we would like our homes to look like this or not. So when thinking about classrooms, we're looking for a middle ground. So we're reducing the clutter, but we're keeping the space easy to understand and easy to see, and keeping the space inviting. And this is because there's lots of research that shows that low visual stimulus environments improves children and young people's learning and performance in cognitive tasks and helps improve their attention. So particularly autistic children and young people. And one study also found that indoor plants or indoor nature, such as a green wall, improve our feelings of well-being. So we can see some examples of what they did in the experiment here. So it was in university and looking at how they implemented that. Here is a highly decorated classroom environment. So there's things hanging from the ceiling, on the wall, some sort of tree going on in the corner, on a desk maybe. This level of visual input in the environment would detract from learning. So if we go back to that jug analogy, we're putting more into the jug to have to sort out. So instead, what can be more supportive are spaces with one big display rather than lots of little ones. So we're not looking for the minimalism, we're not looking for a really blank space, but we are looking for some blank space, and we're looking for more coherence and more easy to understand through one quick look. So a school I visited recently had changed all of their backing paper on their displays to Hessian, and that worked really well to just help. So there was still lots of colour and displays, but there was just some kind of visual consistency and calmness to it. Something that's really important is leaving blank wall space. So I recommend this a lot. And again, this is backed by research. So if you can aim for having 20 to 50% of blank wall space in your classroom, it really will help your students focus. So think about the displays you've got up and really hone in on what key messages you want them to listen to. Because the thing about the jug is that the students who can't take the things out of the jug, they're going to be distracted by it all the time. But the students who can take things out of their jug and filter, those visuals and displays that should help them learn quickly can fade into the background. So really they don't gain much from it either. So it is really about targeting the specifics that you want. Let's think about the area around the whiteboard where you stand. This is really important to have clear behind you and around the whiteboard. This is because you don't want close visual distractors. So if we could hook up your students to eye gaze technology, it's likely we would see lots of little sets of eyes flicking all over the place. But if there are less distractions around the things that we want them to look at, the more likely we are to hold their visual attention. So just to be clear, this is different from asking children to make eye contact. We're not asking students to make eye contact with us. Autistic people often report that making eye contact is incredibly uncomfortable for them. So there's a nice quip that's often used with like, I can either look at you or I can pay attention, which would you like? So yes, we're not asking children to make eye contact, we're just wanting to make it easier for them to look at where we want them to look. So whether that's at us or at the whiteboard, we want the space behind us and the whiteboard to be as blank as possible. When we're thinking of table layouts, pushing more tables together decreases visual clutter compared to lots of individual tables. It can also support students who have motor planning difficulties and body awareness difficulties, who otherwise would be bumping into people and finding it hard to navigate around the classroom. Within your classroom, if you teach primary age children, something I always advise is to have a calm corner. This can also be the reading corner. It can have a dual purpose. But the aim here is to make a cosy, low visual environment that can be used for a regulation break without needing to go out of the classroom. Keep it simple with a few matching plain cushions and blankets and some sort of canopy or tent. That just helps make the space feel a bit enclosed and a bit cosier. From there, you can then add in a calm kit, which can have fiddle toys, stretch toys, visual toys, for those children who need it. And again, I can talk a bit more about what calm kits would look like in the future. Getting movement opportunities into daily classroom activities is another great way of keeping the students regulated. So we want to provide proprioceptive and vestibular options. So see my other video around the senses if those words are unfamiliar to you. But they're basically on movement senses. So we want to get extra seating in that offers movement options. So we need to tread with caution and do speak to an OT if you're not sure about anything. For example, wobble cushions are a brilliant tool, but can often be misused. So they are great for children who need to fidget, but have good core strength and good fine motor skills. For those children who have got poor core strength and poor fine motor skills, I don't recommend wobble cushions because they are wobbling as a result of not having good strength in their core. So we want to tread with caution, but do have a look at some other movement options for seating. So things like the Zuma rockers are brilliant. So they're more stable than gimbals or hockey stools or wobble cushions, and they have anti-tips to stop them from going back too far. They also come in floor versions too, so if you have children who need a bit of extra movement on the floor, then the Zuma rockers, the floor rockers, are great. If you have children who struggle to sit up on the carpet, anywhere chairs that can be bought from camping shops are great alternatives as well. So they just give the child the ability to lean back, but in a way that they can still be sat on the carpet alongside their friends, and they just get the support that they need as well. Hockey stools that I just mentioned are great for those needing some extra wobbling. The same caution applies though in terms of wobble cushions, so they're not for children with poor core strength unless they're being used as a therapeutic activity. Gym balls are a classic movement seating option, but they can roll all over the place and be a bit chaotic. You can buy alternative ones with little feet attached, or you can get a chair stand to put them in. And peanut balls are also quite good, and they provide similar bouncy movement, but only in forwards and backwards movement rather than 360, such as gym balls. So they can be a little bit more stable and a bit less all over the place. Something else to bear in mind is that it's harder to sort, but it can be a significant issue, is lighting. So natural light from windows is ideal, and old style fluorescent strip lights that can flicker can be really problematic. So lots of autistic individuals report that strip lights, they can see the flickering, and that can cause headaches and discomfort and distraction. So in comparison, LED lighting is quite a good option as an alternative. So some final considerations for classrooms include noise and smell. So noise from outside the classroom, in corridors, outside the window, the hum of the lights, computers within the room, general classroom chat or background music, they can all add extra input in the jug, making it harder for some students to focus. So some students work well with background music, other students find that really distracting. So you can allow students quiet breaks or access to ear defenders, or wearing headphones without any music on through them are good reasonable adjustments, as well as where you can, warning before any loud noises as well. In terms of smell, think about what's in the environment. So food smells, perfume, aftershave, coffee and tea breath, cigarette breath. These can all cause extra stress for some students, and it can be a really hard trigger to identify as well. So just bear that in mind, that what products we use and what we do can also have an impact on smells in the environment. So a few key points to end on. 20 to 50% blank wall space is ideal, particularly behind the whiteboard and where you usually stand. Create a calm space and have some movement seating options. So I hope this has given you lots to consider for your classroom, and let me know if you have any questions and I will help however I can.